Coding adventure, what are we gonna code today? Boom, 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 boom. Alright, welcome back to Coding Adventure. If you remember in our last episode, we were creating this beautiful animal simulator and it was overpopulating our world with annoying dogs. So let's go ahead and close this before things get out of control here. And, oh shit. Well, this is interesting. Let's go ahead and wrap this in a try-catch block. Basically, what happened there was we, race condition. I closed the form while it was in the middle of trying to dispatch the removal of one of the animals that had died, so I will now wrap that in a try-catch block to, prevent that from occurring, and I probably will do the same to the add event handler as well, because that is also vulnerable to object-disposed exceptions. I'm sorry, I don't know what the fuck just happened. And the reason we're not worrying about it is because if we encounter this, it means that the form that we're invoking has been disposed, which means that the whole program is shutting down, and there's no reason to add the item in the first place, so it's not a big deal. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to add some buttons here. I'm going to add an add, and I'm going to add a remove button. And the remove button is going to be the easiest to code, so let's go through this first. And what we want to do when someone clicks the remove button... Excuse me, where the hell's my event handler? Holy shit. I've been double-clicking on buttons for 30 years to fucking open them. I have no idea why the fuck that didn't automatically, create. We should probably name them something helpful first. We'll call them add button and remove button. I'll call it the murder button. So when we go into murder-button.click, we will loop through the list items, I as list view item, in the animal view.item, or selected items. If none of them are selected, nothing will happen, but if they are, we're going to remove the item, and then we also need to remove it from the animals collection within the simulator. So we will go ahead and I will say if I.tag is not nothing, and also sim.animals.contains I.tag, then sim.animals.remove I.tag. So basically, remember, we stored a reference to the animal in the tag of the list view item, the user interface element. So we're going through the list view items, and we just want to make sure, because it's very possible someone else may have added a list view item that's not tagged with our animal, but first we check to see if it's tagged with something, and then if it is, we check to see if the animals list contains that, and then if it does, it will be removed. So, awesome, awesome sauce. We do open ourselves up to the fact that if someone tags something with something that's not an animal, this cast will probably fail. So technically I should also say, and also, type of I.tag is animal, and also the rest of that. Just to keep that from crashing if someone sets a tag to something that's not an animal. And then that should pretty much work, so let's go ahead and try that. And if I just want to remove these people right now, boom. And we'll remove this one while he's going, and we'll remove that one, and that's the end of it. So let's make our add button work now. So the simplest thing that we could just do is create a new animal. In fact, we don't have to create one, we can just call new animal. All we do is create one, and we just say new animal. And that's literally it. Let's try that out. Hey, look at that. There's some animals. Isn't that great? They don't have names, but who cares? Awesome sauce. And if we really want to, we could say with name equals input box, because this is VB, we could just call right into the input box function out of nowhere. What object is that on? Well, technically it's on the interaction object. I'm sure it's Microsoft.visualbasic.interaction. What's the name of the animal? And maybe the default will be, what's the title? And the default will be, Harrison. So if we go ahead and run this, now when we click, add, it'll be like, what's the name of the animal? It's Harrison. What's the name of the animal? That one's Harrison too. What's the name of the animal? Ass. What's the name of the animal? That has no name. What's the name of the animal? So that seems to work pretty well. But wouldn't it be interesting if you could select the type of the animal when you click this? Okay, so what we're going to do is at the top here, I'm going to go ahead and create a public with events. Actually, we don't need to make it with events. Animal menu as new menu tool strip drop down menu. And when we go and click our add button, what we're going to do is instead of... Oh, come on. Fucking crazy. What we're going to do here is we're going to actually the first thing we're going to do is we're not going to do add button.click. We're going to do add button.mouse down. And the reason for that is in mouse down, we get different event arguments. We get ones that actually have mouse data, like the position. So what we can do is we can call animal menu.show, and there's a number of overloads for this function. You can see here, we can put the screen position, the absolute screen position. We can put a control and a reference to it. We can do an X and a Y. We can do a position and a direction. There's a whole number of things we can do here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to send it the sender, which is the add button. Basically, I'm just going to say add button because that's what it's linked to, and that's more type safe than late binding the object from sender. And I'm going to say e.location is the position. And now the only thing we have to do is actually populate it with stuff. So here, let me just put in a dummy menu item here. I'm going to say items.add new menu item, and it needs to be a tool strip menu. I'm just going to say asshole. And if you go here, you can see that it says asshole, right click, and it adds one each time because I'm not clearing them, and I should. So let's go ahead and clear them. And the other thing that we need to do is we need to set an event handler, but let's create the actual items first. Alright, so what we want to do is we want to get all of the types in the assembly that are assignable to an animal variable. So the easiest way to do this is let's go ahead and create a function called lookForTypes. And for now, I don't know what the return type is going to be, but it's going to take in an assembly. We call it the ass. And the assemblies are in the reflection namespace, reflection.assembly. And what we're going to do is within the assembly, we're going to find the types, and the types are going to be the assembly.getTypes. And this returns all of the types, which is not helpful, but what we can do is we can say from tsType in ass.getTypes, where getTypeAnimal, this is the same thing as the typeOf operator in C#. It basically takes in the literal identifier for the type and returns the object representing the type, the system.type object representing the type. Where getTypeAnimal is assignable from T. So in other words, go through all of the types in the assembly, looking for all of the ones that are assignable to animal. And then what we want to do in here is we'll return types.toArray, and this will return an array of type. Awesome. So let's go ahead and say, let's make a list of types here. And the first thing that we'll do is we'll run through the assembly that contains the actual animal, the assembly that contains the assy swizzle cheeks, namespace, and animal, cat, dog, and annoying dog. So what we'll do is we'll look for types in reflection.assembly.getAssembly. And what this does is this finds the assembly that a type came from. So we'll put in the type of animal in here, and that will reference the assembly containing the assy swizzle cheeks.animal. And what we do is we'll add all of those to this list of types that we will look for. And what is the issue? I'm sorry, what? Okay, how about instead of just fucking to list. Are you serious? What now? List of type cannot be converted to type. Oh, I'm sorry, I need to do add range. I'm a fucking idiot. Sitting here trying to figure out why I can't add more than one at a time. Add range, add range. I thought I was dealing with the constructor. Anyway. And then what we'll do is we'll loop through each of the types and add them to the animal menu. So we'll create a item as new tool strip menu item with the text being the name. We'll say, here's one thing you can do in Visual Basic that's really nice. You can do a with block, and then within the with block you don't have to actually say item dot, item dot, item dot. I can just say text equals t.name dot tag equals t, and I can even add handler. This is how you subscribe to an event in VB. I can just say dot click, so this is going to be what happens when someone clicks the menu, and I can point that at the function called, we'll call it add menu click, and we'll create this up here. And it's going to take sender as object and e as event argus because it's a click and it's a lazy click. There's no event data. And look, all of our squigglies went away. And let's see what happens. For now, I'm just going to put some random thing up here. Hello, Cookie Monster, just so that we can tell when our thing has been clicked. So I'm going to go ahead and click add here, and as you can see, nothing seems to have happened, and let's figure out why. So let's go ahead and put a breakpoint in our event handler, and I'll click add, and you can see that we're clearing the items, we're going through, we run this entire deal, we find the types. At this point, types has, yeah, go ahead, 4 types, exactly what we'd expect, the annoying dog, the cat, the dog, and the animal. Yeah, come on. Thank you. Then we add it 2 types, and at this point types count equals 4. We go for each of these. Oh, I'm a fucking moron. We didn't add it to the menu. We did not add it to the menu. Alright, animal menu.items.add item. This would have been awesome if it just worked on the first try. And there's your items. When I click it, hello Cookie Monster, hello Cookie Monster. Perfect. So now instead of hello Cookie Monster, we'll actually grab, first of all, let's grab the menu item that's being called in the sender. So we'll say menu as toolstrip menu item, try cast it from the sender to the toolstrip menu item. And this basically, well, if menu is not nothing. So in other words, if the tag was set to, I'm sorry, if the sender was a toolstrip menu item, which it should have been because the only thing that we bound this event handler to were toolstrip menu items, but, you know, it's not, you know, outside the realm of impossible for there to be some way that other menu items got in here. But anyway, if the menu is not nothing, then what we're going to do is we're going to grab the type that it is a, in the tag here, so we're going to say dim ts type equals try cast menu dot tag type, and we should probably also check to see if that's nothing. We can do menu dot tag is not nothing, so we'll go ahead and do that. And then if t is nothing, then return, because there's no point in doing anything if we don't have the type. But now that we have the type, we can do all kinds of things with it. Ooh, ah. So let's create an animal, and an instance of an animal, so say a as animal equals, and what we're going to do, first we're going to call the activator up, remember the activator, and we're going to create instance, and we're going to say, create an instance, give me the damn autocomplete please, and we're going to put the type there, and then what we want to do is we want to actually cast this. Now all my squigglies went away, but that still, it doesn't mean anything, it means we're late binding, so I'm actually going to cast this explicitly. It doesn't really do much of anything more helpful other than that it's not late binding. And what I mean by late binding is this thing returns an object, and I'm assigning it to animal, and at this point in time, the compiler doesn't actually do any checks because it can't do checks because it doesn't know what this function is going to provide. At runtime, this thing provides an object, hopefully an animal, because that's what I'm asking it to create, or something assignable from animal, or assignable to animal. And if for whatever reason it gives me something that's not an animal, this cast would fail. I mean, it's still going to fail, it's just, it would fail at runtime, and it still will fail at runtime because it's going to run into the C-type thing here, but basically I'm just making the code more explicit. If this was C#, you would have to cast it, as we did in when we created the instance of the animal when we spawned a child. In fact, let's take a look at that because it's awesome code. And you can see here that we had to explicitly cast it to an animal. And then that is exactly what I'm doing here. So anyway, now that we have our animal, we will ask for the name. What's the name? Name your animal. Michael Jordan. And then we will add it to the simulator. And we should be set. Let's try it out. So we're going to start this up. I'm going to add a cat named Chowder. And there we go. We have a cat named Chowder. And let's add an annoying dog named Tweaker. Look at that. Boom. Boom. Look at how easy that is. We're going to remove that, and voila. Awesome. Great job. Now let's go ahead and create, let's say, for example, we want to create another animal. So within this Visual Basic project, I'm just going to add another class. I'm just going to add a new file, and we'll call it animals. And in this file, I'm going to create a lion, which will inherit from cat. Holy shit, cat is not... Alright, let's import our assy swizzle cheeks. And we have a lion, but as you see, the lion is not going to show up in the list, and the reason for that is that it is not in the assembly where the animal is, it's in the current assembly. So when we go in and we enumerate our menu here, one thing that we're going to want to do, I can't believe this is not running the fucking event handler, I can't believe this. One thing that we're going to want to do, I'm sorry, in our mouse down handler, is look for types in the current assembly, and we can do that by saying assembly dot get calling assembly. And now when we run our code, you'll see that it still isn't there. And I can't speak for why it is not there, because it should be there. Perhaps what I mean is get executing assembly, because technically the get calling assembly is MS core lib. There it is. There it is. I apologize for that. Simba. And now we have a lion in here. Isn't that awesome? The reason why get calling assembly was not helpful is because get calling assembly is not the assembly that was calling this function. The assembly that was calling this function is MS core lib, which is where, I apologize, it probably isn't even MS core lib, it's probably system.windows.forms. But whatever it was, it is not the assembly. Executing assembly is the one that we want because it's the one that actually has our code in it that I wrote, including the lion. So let's add another lion for simplicity's sake. Alright, let's go ahead and stop this. Now, wouldn't it be nice if other developers could add their own animals through plugins? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do. Isn't that right? Isn't that awesome? Isn't that absolutely awesome? Yes, that's what we're going to do. We're going to make this completely extensible pluggable, and we're going to do it at the lowest of levels. All right, so now before we make code that can load plugins, we have to make a plugin to load. So I'm going to go and add another project to the solution, yet another project, and this project will go back to C#. It's going to be a class library, which is going to output a DLL file, and we'll call this extra animals. We'll call it extras for short. Then we have our class library, and I'm going to go ahead and add a reference. And I'm going to add the reference to our original project, the one that has our animal reference in it. And I'm going to go ahead and import that namespace. I'm going to import Assy Swizzle Cheeks. And then within our namespace, I'm just going to create some new animals. I'm going to say public class horse inherits animal. Public class monkey, fish, goldfish, catfish, and let's take the lion out of our other class for now, and let's put it over here. And of note, in the lion, I'm going to override the noise function and make some rawr noises. And on the catfish, we did not make available. We did not make available. Noise time. Let's make that protected. And we'll say that catfish have an extremely long noise time. It's the longest it could possibly ever be. Which is fine because they never actually make noise. But I guess when they do make noise, they should make a noise. Perhaps instead of making a noise, what actually happens is they present you with an input box. Oh, we're not in Visual Basic anymore. We can't just do that. I'm assuming that I have to do... No. Oh, I don't have a reference to anything in the user interface. Alright, well, what we'll do instead is we'll just simply... What can I do with the environment? God damn it. This keyboard's having a conniption. We could just crash the program. That's always fun. We'll just make some noise. We'll just... The catfish says your username. Yay. Alright. So there's some stuff, and I'm going to go ahead and compile this by building it. And of note, what I'm going to do here is I'm not going to create a reference to this in our normal project, in either our animals project or the UI. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into the UI, and I'm going to create another button here. Once I remember where the toolbox went. And I'm going to say load. Maybe we'll call it load plugin. So what we'll do is we'll ask the user for a file. So the first thing we'll do is we'll create a file open dialog box. File dialog. And we will say select plugin file. And our filter will be, our filter will be called Animal Simulator Plugins of type DLL. And we'll go ahead and show the dialog box and store the result. And if the result is cancel, we'll go ahead and return because we don't need to continue. And then the other thing that we'll check here is if string that is null or empty the FOD file name, then we also will return. But if not, we have the file name, so we'll go ahead and try to load it. So what we'll do here is we'll do a try, and we'll say ass equals reflection.assembly.load from, or load file. Load file is the path, load from is the... Wow, this is really not very... Loads the contents of an assembly file in the specified path. Loads an assembly given its file here a path. Oh my god, what is the difference? No one knows. I'm almost positive I've always used load from, though, so we'll go ahead and use that. And then assuming we have the assembly, the next thing we want to do is we want to we want to basically do our code from over here. We want to... Actually, we don't really have to do anything. What we have to do is we have to add the assembly to some place where we know to enumerate it. So let's go up here and we'll create a list of assemblies at the top of our class. And then what we'll do is we'll go down here, and once we've loaded the assembly, we will simply add it to that list. And we can show a message box. Successfully loaded the assembly. And maybe we'll also put some information about the assembly, like the full name. And I think that's good. What am I doing here? What is this? This is the owner text. What? I don't really care. All right. And then if there's an exception, we'll show the exception text. And then what we will do here. What is the issue? New cannot be used in a class that... Yeah, that's what I fucking said in the first place. You didn't want to autocomplete. And then when we do our types, we'll basically say for each A is reflection.assembly and assemblies. And basically just do the same exact thing. Voila. Now let's go ahead and run this. Oh shit, we can't run it. Why not? Oh, I'm sorry, we need of. The word of there. There we go. So you can see here, if we go ahead and load the plugin, we get the open file dialog box. We double click our DLL, it shows that we've successfully loaded the library, and now we have all of our types available. So here's a fish named Michelangelo. Spelled wrong, obviously. The next problem is that we can't see the messages. The messages are not coming through because we didn't implement them. So the first problem is that we need to abstract that event up to our animal simulator level so that our user interface can receive it. So I'm going to paste in here a delegate for a message event, which sends a sender of animal simulator, the source, which is an animal, and the string, which is a message. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and find our new message event handler, and after we add our messages, we're just going to encapsulate this and then raise our outer handler. So if new message is not null, then new message, and this time we have 3 parameters, this, which is our sender, the inner sender, and then the message. And now that we've exposed those to our Visual Basic program, we can go into our VB, we can go and go to our simulator, and we can handle the new message event. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to collapse this a little bit and create a text box here. Where is a text box? Here's a text box, and I'll put it here, and we'll make it that wide, and I will say multi-line, and I will make it that tall, and I will also say read-only, and then I will name it, I will say you are the messages box. And now within my code, I will say, first of all, I will say invoke, because we have to be operating from the UI thread, and I will say new action sub, and what this is called a lambda, and what I've basically done is created a function within a function call, within a delegate. So I'm creating a delegate that literally points to this embedded function. It doesn't point to an outer function. It literally points to this embedded function. So what I'm going to do within here is I'm just going to say messages box dot append text, and the text that we want is the source dot name and the message, and then a control characters character return line feed, and then messages box scroll to caret, and we are all set. Except this is not... What is the issue? Messages operates of string text box. Oh, I'm sorry. Ooh. Message. There we go. And let's go ahead and run this. And we'll start it. And you can see here's our messages coming in. One problem is I didn't put a scroll bar, so let's go ahead and say scroll bars vertical. And now, if all goes well, when the messages get full, it should continue scrolling because we have scroll to caret being called. And now if we do our due diligence and load our plugin, add our lion, named Simba, and there's our roar happening. Now the only problem that I have is that I don't like having to use the internal names of these types. I wish we could use a display name. So let's think about how we would do that. How would we make it so that our extenders, our modifiers, our third parties that are writing plugins very similar to this one here, how can we make it so that they can present to us a display name? Well, the first thing that we could do is we could go into our base class, our animal, and we could say something along the lines of public static name, or string, type display name. And we could even initialize it to this, we'd have to do it in a constructor, but we could totally initialize it to the existing type name and then have it being overridden. So we could even make it protected to lock it down a bit, but this is still a pretty big kludge. This still requires access to the base class, and that's a pretty big assumption. You might not have access to the base class. You might be working with other people's components, like you might just be working with a form or a window or a button or something that you can't modify, in which case you need to be able to add something. You need to be able to tag it with some metadata. And the way that we do that is by using attributes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here within our base assembly, our assy swizzle cheeks, and I'm going to create a new class called animal plugin attribute, and it's going to inherit attribute. And one of the things that we're going to have here is a public property called display name. And I'm going to put in an auto property. And what an auto property is it basically creates a property that automatically is wired up to a private field called underscore display name. And if I create a destructor, if I create a constructor here. Okay, so actually let's just leave this for now. And let's go over to our animals class. Our extras class, which is where our extras namespace, rather, which is where our additional animals are. And what we can do here is we can actually name these with display name. So, for example, with fish, I'm going to say animal plugin, and say display name equals fish. And notice how that is so much simpler than having to override a static member and then set it in a constructor or in an initializer. This just tags it on there, and it's not visible to anyone that doesn't need to see it. And we can do it over here too. We can say animal plugin, display name equals goldfish. And let's go ahead and just make these all nice and monkey, horsey, delicious catfish, and a lion. And now what we can do is over in our user interface program, which is over here in VB, we can actually, I did not mean to throw a checkbox there, thank you very much. We can actually modify our code to look for those. So what we can do here is that when we are going through our types, which is here, we can go down here and we can say attributes is t.get custom attributes. And you can even specify the attribute type. So I can actually say get type animal plugin attribute. And that is what I want. What is your problem? I didn't ask for a boolean. Go fuck yourself. Inherit. That is true. True search inheritance. Yes, we do want to search the inheritance chain. And now we have attributes, or supposedly an array of attributes. And what we can do is we can say if attributes is not nothing, and also attributes dot. Actually, what we'll do here is we'll say attributes is not nothing. Then A is attribute first or default. This will return nothing if there's nothing in there. And then we'll create the text name here by default with the name, but then we'll override it here with the display name, and then we'll set it here. And let's see if that works, or if it will just be a big fat crash. I'll go ahead and load my plugin first, since that's where I define all my damn attributes. And what do you know? Horsey, monkey, fish, delicious catfish. See how easy that was? Look at that. Look at how beautiful that is. And that's all we have. Delicious. Michael Jordan. That's all we have for today's episode. I hope you can see how these principles and tidbits and behaviors will help you in your own work. Thank you. Good night.